Welcome back. Good morning, everyone. As promised, now President Trump joining me live. The president telling his doctor, quote, "I feel great," in a memo released yesterday. Meanwhile, the president praised the Regeneron antibody cocktail, calling it, quote, "a cure," prompting the company to seek emergency FDA approval overnight. Joining me right now is the President of the United States in his first interview since his COVID-19 diagnosis, Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, thank you so much for being here. First question is, how are you feeling? How is the First Lady feeling this morning?
She's feeling good. I'm feeling good, really good. I think perfect. And we're ready to go. I'm ready to go, except the quarantine situation that you have for a little while after you get tested or whatever the procedure is. But I'm ready to do. I'm looking forward to doing the rallies. I heard that the commission a little while ago changed the debate style, and that's not acceptable to us. I beat him easily in the first debate, according to the polls that I've seen, but I beat him easily. I felt I beat him easily. I think he felt it, too. He wouldn't answer any questions, and he had the protection of Chris Wallace all night long. It was I thought Chris Wallace was a disaster. But I beat him in the first debate. At the second debate, we have a never-Trumper as a host, but that's okay because I beat him in the second debate also. And but I'm not going to do a virtual debate.
So Mr. President, you're not going to do it because the CPD, the Commission on Presidential Debates, announcing this morning that the second presidential debate will be virtual. Are you saying you're not going to participate?
No, I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating's all about. You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous. And then they cut you off whenever they want. I have a host who I always thought was a nice guy, but I see he's a never-Trumper. Came out that he's a never-Trumper. We do have some of them, Maria, believe it or not, because they don't like to win. But I'm not doing a virtual debate. They didn't even tell us about the debate, Maria.
So you just learned this morning?
Yeah, we learned it the same way you learned it. They called up 2 minutes ago, and it was announced. And they're trying to protect Biden. Everybody is. They're trying, like that NBC disaster where he went on this show with Lester Holt. It was like it was meant for a child. It wasn't meant for a grown person. He gets up and he says, "We're not fracking. We're not fracking." He was fracking for 6 months. He was fracking. He was raising his very thin hand, and he was fracking. And now all of a sudden he's not fracking. Well, tell the Pennsylvania people that you're going, it's ridiculous. He said he's not fracking. That's all he said. And then all of a sudden he goes to a fracking mode. And how about her? She committed her life to it. And all of a sudden she's a fracker. She's a big fracker. They're going to stop fracking the minute they get into office. They're lying to everybody. They're lying about so many different things. But you have to confront people. You can't do it.
I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about what you heard last night. But Mr. President, you say you're not going to do this debate. Address the criticism, Mr. President, the criticism that you removed your mask for a photo op. You got to the top of the steps. You removed it. People are worried about your recent diagnosis. Now you've got 30-plus people with coronavirus in and around the White House. Address that concern for us, Mr. President. As you tell the Commission on Debates, you're not going to do this virtually.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I'm better when to a point where I'd love to do a rally tonight. I wanted to do one last night, but I think I'm better to a point that I feel better than I did. I jokingly said 20 years ago. I feel perfect. There's nothing wrong. I had a case. I got it knocked out. I think it was Regeneron that was responsible for it. Because of that, it was sort of like almost a gift from heaven because of what I went through, and I had I felt pretty lousy. A lot of people did. And a lot of people do. No matter how good the security, you're not going to protect yourself from this thing with just your standard anything, unless you just literally don't come out. And even those people found out. Did you see in New York City, the most heavily locked down place, the people that caught it the most were the people that were caught in their houses and their apartments, okay? It's one of those things that... Yes, go ahead, Maria.
I'm glad you brought up New York because, Mr. President, I'm glad you brought up New York because yesterday, Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, said that the city is going to be on lockdown until November 3rd. Not November 2nd, November 3rd, which, of course, is election day.
They're trying to hurt the economy as much as possible, the Democrats. They want a November 3rd because this way they figure the economy will hurt a little bit better. My numbers won't be as good. but actually our numbers are going to be great. Our numbers for the third quarter are going to be through the roof. Retail sales, employment, all of these numbers are going to be great. So I don't know what they're doing. It's a shame what's happened to New York. It's like a ghost town. It's like a sad place, New York.
Yeah,
So
and this was your home.
I have friends living there.
You
They're
love
leaving.
New York. Look, I want to go back to the coronavirus for a moment, because the testing at the White House, I know, is incredible, and everybody gets tested every day. You can't even come in to see you without getting tested. Every precaution was taken to protect you. Anybody who came within feet had to be tested. How is it possible that you did contract the coronavirus, and what kind of protections are you putting in place now? You say you feel great, but the media is out there saying, well, you're contagious. Do you feel that you are? I mean, obviously you
No, I don't think I'm
feel
contagious,
that way if you're saying you're ready to go to a rally.
I don't think I'm contagious at all. Well, first of all, if I'm at a rally, I stand by myself very far away from everybody, so whether I was or not. But I still wouldn't go to a rally if I was contagious. But no, it takes a certain period of time. I feel that I'm great. You catch this thing. A lot of people caught it. Look, you have the governor of Virginia. He wore a mask all the time. You'd never see the guy without a mask. He catches it. You have senators that wore masks all the time. Tom Tillis, a very good guy who's, I think, now going to win his race because his opponent happened to have not one affair but two affairs, okay? That was not good timing. And I think Tom Tillis is going to win his race, and he should win it. He's a good man. But he was known as a mask, Mr. Mask, we call him. He caught it. You catch this thing. It's, it's particles of dust. It's tiny stuff. Now, as far as the White House is concerned, somebody got in. It was a day of celebration with Notre Dame, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody got in, and people got affected, whether it was there or something else. And remember this, when you catch it, you get better, and then you're immune. As soon as everything goes away from me, you're immune.
Tell me how you felt.
What?
It's amazing to me that tell me how you felt, what you went through. It's amazing to me that you're back in such strong form right now. How did that happen? You've been talking about Regeneron. Eli Lilly and Regeneron want FDA approval for emergency use at this point. Are they going to get it?
They're going to get it. Yeah, they're going to get it. I'm back because I'm a perfect physical specimen, and I'm extremely young. And so I'm lucky in that way. And seriously,
what were your
I
symptoms?
I don't have heart problems. I don't have diabetes. I don't have any of the problems that you read about. Perhaps a couple of pounds we could lose here and there, but, there's a lot of people in that category. But no, I'm in good health, and I'm, look, what happens is if you're anywhere around this thing, you can catch it. People caught it, and I'm not just talking about this location. I'm talking about many other locations. Now, what happens is you get better. That's what happens. You get better. Now, we have drugs now that we didn't even know about 4 months ago, like Regeneron, and I'm not even talking about remdesivir. Remdesivir is, it's fine. But the Regeneron, I view it as a cure, not just a therapeutic. I view it as a cure because I took it. And Eli Lilly has a great drug. I spoke to the head of it, David, last night, the company. Very much along the lines of Regeneron. And they work in a very similar way. It's great. And what I'm doing is I'm going to supply this drug. It made me better, I will tell you right now. I walked in. I didn't feel great. I think I would have done it fine without drugs. You don't really need drugs. And they also like to give you steroids, like a steroid combination for a short period of time, because that stops the swelling, like a baseball pitcher would use a steroid to, when his arm blows up. They want to stop the swelling of the lungs in particular. And so they gave me a steroid, which is a very easy thing to take. But, no, I had tremendous luck with this Regeneron. And Eli Lilly, I would have had the luck. What I'm doing now, and I don't know if you saw the video I made last night, but I made a video. I put it out.
Yes, I did. And you said it was a blessing in disguise.
A blessing in disguise. I'm glad because I'm the leader. And I can't be like Biden where I hang out in a basement every day. Sure, if I wanted to hang out in a basement, I wouldn't catch it, but I meet a lot of people, and I have to. I'm the president of the country. I can't hang around in a basement. So I figured there would be a chance that I would catch it. Sometimes I'd be in groups of, for instance, Gold Star families. I met with Gold Star families. I didn't want to cancel that. But they all came in and they all talked about their son and daughter and father and you know, they all came up to me and they'd tell me a story, Maria. It was really amazing, actually, beautiful but sad. And they'd come up and they'd tell me a story about my son, sir, was in Iraq or he was in Afghanistan. And, sir, he did this and he did that, and then he charged in order to save his friends. And, yes, sir, he was killed, but he saved his friends. He's so brave, sir. And they tell me these stories. And I can't say back up, stand 10 feet. You know, I just can't do it. And I went through like 35 people, and everyone had a different story. I could also say don't tell stories. They're telling the story of their son who just died, or daughter, or husband, who just died in a war or recently died, you know, usually mostly over the last 10, 12 years, but some very recent. And I can't back up, Maria, and say, give me room. I want room. Give me 12 feet. Stay 12 feet away when you talk. They come within an inch of my face sometimes. They want to hug me and they want to kiss me. And they do. And frankly, I'm not telling them to back up. I'm not doing it. But I did say it's like, you know, it's obviously dangerous. It's a dangerous thing, I guess, if you go by the COVID thing. But I figured, look, I look at the numbers. I figured that probably at some point I'd catch it and I'll get better. And that's what happened. I've caught it. I could have been out of the hospital in one day. I had the Regeneron. Now, I don't know what would have happened without the Regeneron. All I know is I had it, and I was better within 24 hours. I felt perfect. I feel perfect now, Maria. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to speak to you.
And you are back in it, sort of knee-deep in work again. I want to ask you about the stimulus
I was
plan,
yesterday, and the day before that, I worked from the hospital. I worked a full schedule. I missed very little time.
You're calling for aid now. You want aid for the airlines, for small business, $1,200 checks. But you just said that you were shutting down talks with Nancy Pelosi. How do you want to see aid play out? And what do you want as far as a priority on stimulus?
Well, I shut down talks 2 days ago because they weren't working out. Now they are starting to work out. We're starting to have some very productive talks. And she wants to happen, too. She doesn't want it not to happen. I believe she wants it to happen because it's so good for our country. We really need it. It wasn't our workers' fault. It wasn't our airlines' fault that China did this terrible thing to us, and I will not be forgetting about that. China did this. This was all done by China. And we shouldn't be hurting our workers because China put the curse on, because this was a horrible scourge, a horrible, horrible thing that they did. And so I said, look, we're not getting anywhere. Shut it down. And I didn't want to waste time. But in any event, after that, we got back. Both sides very capable. We got back. We started talking again, and we're talking about airlines, and we're talking about a bigger deal than airlines. We're talking about a deal with $1,200 per person. We're talking about other things. But it's not anybody's fault. They were trying to get things, and we were trying to get things, and it wasn't going anywhere. I shut it down. I don't want to play games. And then we reopened, and I see the markets are doing well, but I think we have a really good chance of doing something. And Nancy Pelosi, look, she's not my favorite person. She impeached me for no reason. So when you get impeached for no reason, you have a little bit of a telltale lag. But, she impeached me over a phone call that was absolutely perfect. Okay, and everybody knew it, and they never had a chance. And but I still had to go through a process, which is ridiculous. So it's not like
the impeachment trial.
I think she's the greatest person in the world.
Trial was not based on any actual crime. But I want to talk about that because you've been facing incredible resistance your entire term, and you've taken some real bold action this week, authorizing the disclosure of all of the documents related to the Russia hoax. Sure. Mr. President, we now know from these documents that John Ratcliffe unveiled that it was Hillary Clinton's idea to tie you to Russia in some way. It was successful. The whole country was talking about it for 2.5 years. But what comes next, Mr. President? We can have all of these documents. We can see exactly what happened. But unless John Durham comes out with a report or indictments, unless Bill Barr comes out with some kind of a ruling here, do you think this is resonating on the American people?
Unless Bill Barr indicts these people for crimes, the greatest political crime in the history of our country, then we're going to get little satisfaction unless I win, and we'll just have to go because I won't forget it. But these people should be indicted. This was the greatest political crime in the history of our country, and that includes Obama and it includes Biden. These are people that spied in my campaign, and we have everything. Now they say they have much more, okay? And I say, Bill, we got plenty. You don't need any more. We got so much, Maria. Even just take a look at the Comey report, 78 pages of kill, done by Horowitz. And I have a lot of respect for Horowitz. And he said prosecute. He recommended prosecute, and they didn't prosecute. I couldn't believe it, but they didn't do it because they said we have much bigger fish to fry. Well, that's okay. They indicted Flynn for lying, and he didn't lie. They destroyed many lives. Roger Stone over nothing. They destroyed lives. So look at Manafort. They sent in a black book that was a phony black book. Phony. They made up a black book of cash that he got from Ukraine or someplace. And he didn't get any cash. It was a phony book. What they've done to people.
Brennan, John, we're going to have Carter Page coming on. He's going to tell his story, and we just heard from George Papadopoulos. Their lives have been completely changed. John Brennan briefed President Obama on this. What else is needed to ensure that the American people understand what took place, trampling on American people's rights and liberties before the election?
Look, we have all the evidence in the world. In addition to that, I released everything, every document. I don't care what it pertains to. I released everything. I've declassified. I'm the only one in the country that has the power to do that. I've declassified everything. I did it a year ago, actually, for Bill Barr. I declassified everything. So they would have so there's not a document they can't have. But it's still not that easy. You have a deep state. You have a group of people that don't want to have documents shown, which tells you a bad thing, but they have to give them ultimately, and we're getting them. Yesterday, John Ratcliffe was terrific. He gave over 1,000 pages of documents in that people couldn't get, and they're breaking down. The FBI is slowly but surely giving us what they want. Disappointing how they're responding.
But how come we haven't seen this stuff before? We had a Mueller report, a Michael Horowitz report, a Senate Intel report, and where was Christopher Wray in all of this? Let me ask you, Mr. President, address Christopher Wray. Will you replace him in a second term?
Well, I don't want to say that yet. He's been disappointing. He talks about even the voting thing, like he doesn't see the voting ballots as a problem. There are thousands of ballots right now. You pick up any paper in the country practically, and they're cheating all over the place on the ballots. So how is that not a problem? That's a much bigger problem than China or Russia. If you look at it, it's a much bigger problem. So when you say that, I don't see that as a problem, pick up the newspaper and read. And they lost 1,000 ballots or were defrauded in North Carolina. 500 ballots were sent to Virginia erroneously. You look at what happened just take a look at what happened in New York with the Carolyn Maloney race. It was a disaster how they were able to give her that victory. I don't know the other guy who was a Democrat in the primary, but it was just a small primary. Well, you take a look at that. Look at what happened. Look at what happened yesterday.
More than 2,000 L.A. County ballots printed, mailed without presidential election, without the presidential race on the ballots.
I forgot to put my name
ballots
on the
are being thrown in the trash. Ballots are being sent to dead people. I have another story every day on this situation. What are you going to do about it, Mr. President? If they cheated in 2016, they're going to cheat again. How are you going to stop this and ensure that you have the wherewithal to fight back if it's all ballot lies?
2,000 ballots.
Joe Biden has 800 lawyers. 800 lawyers.
They forgot one minor detail to put my name on the ballot. Okay, other than that, the ballots were wonderful, right? These are cheaters. These are con men. These are cheaters that we're dealing with in Nevada. They don't want to have any signature on the ballots. He's a real beauty. He comes out of the political party. He got to be governor. You can't even get a site. If you want to make a speech in Nevada, you can't even get a site. I got a site because I'm president, but you can't even get a site. It's very hard to get a political site to make a speech to have thousands of people show up. They have them all over the place, but he makes it so that it's very difficult. Anybody else can't get a site, and he's in charge of the ballots. And there's bad things happening out there. Now, we have law enforcement watching him. very strong. The U.S. Attorney is watching him very strongly. The U.S. Marshal is watching. In New Mexico, a state that I think we can win, we have the U.S. Marshal and the U.S. Attorney watching him. So it's not easy for them because we got people watching nobody ever had. But it's a corrupt system because they're sending out millions of ballots. Now, when you send out millions of ballots, when you're the sender, you can send them wherever you want. You can send them to Democrat areas, Republican areas. You don't have to send them at all. Mailmen are being, as you know, indicted. One was indicted yesterday in New Jersey. Another one was indicted in West Virginia. Mailmen. Ballots are being found in riverbeds. They dumped a whole, they call it a tray. A tray is a lot of ballots. I don't know how many, but it's a lot. They found trays of ballots in the river. They found 8 ballots with my name on, military ballots, 8 ballots with my name on it in a wastepaper basket in another good state. No, it's a terrible thing. And then when you bring it up, they say, Maria, then when you bring it up, oh, he's not for freedom. He's not for a smooth transfer, you know.
Well, they keep bringing up the fact that you will not say, if I lose, I will leave the White House, Mr. President. And Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden he needs to contest this election, not concede at all. So what do you think? Is this election going to be contested if you win?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think. If you were running for office and if you see thousands and thousands of ballots being thrown into rivers, and they have your name on it in some cases. In other words, we had military ballots where people voted for me. Military. The military is going to vote for me because I rebuilt the military. I love the military. Despite their phony story that they made up about standing in a grave, it's a totally made-up story. They don't even have any witnesses. They made it up. And that's why they're lowlifes, because then they made it up and then they went with a story. They know it wasn't true, but they use it all the time. Actually, it was Joe Biden that called the military a bunch of dirty bastards, and he said it on tape. He called them a bunch of dirty bastards, and he said it on tape. Nobody brings that up. The press doesn't bring that up. They made up a story with me about what I said. It's the most angered I was on this campaign when they did that. I said, now that gloves are off. Let the gloves be off.
In fact, one of your priorities has been to bring the troops back home. This is your latest... from Afghanistan. What can you tell us? You say you think all of the troops will be home by Christmas, or are you looking at mid-2021?
Shortly by the end of the year, yeah. So what's happened is, we're in negotiations. But look, the other side's tired of fighting, too. 19 years. It's been 19 years. And I've been bringing them home. We're down to 4,000 troops in Afghanistan, and I'll have them home by the end of the year. They're coming home, as we speak. 19 years is enough. They're acting as policemen, okay? They're not acting as troops. We have the greatest troops in the world. I wiped out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I killed Soleimani. I killed al-Baghdadi. Names that everybody, bigger names than Osama bin Laden. Al-Baghdadi founded ISIS. Soleimani was the worst terrorist in 50 years. I killed both of them. Nobody could find them until I came along. But we've done a great job. Our soldiers have been fantastic. I've rebuilt our military. I want our military home because you know what? We're all over the world. We're in all these different sites fighting in countries that nobody ever heard of. And it hurts us because you wear out your military. And we have to be always prepared for China and Russia and these other places. We have to be prepared. Maybe North Korea. Whatever happened to North Korea, by the way? Remember, we were going to be in a war with North Korea. We're getting along very well. And,
and
we could have lost a couple of million people. Hey, we could have lost a couple of million people.
That did not come up at the debate last night.
No,
Mr.
they don't bring it up because it's a positive story.
I want to get your reaction to the debate last night.
They don't bring it up because it's a positive story.
Pence accused the Biden campaign of plagiarism when it comes to what his plan is. It looks awfully similar to your plan in terms of bringing jobs back to America, firing up the manufacturing industry here. What was your reaction to the debate? What wasn't said that you would have liked to come out? And where do you think the most striking moments were?
I thought that wasn't even a contest last night. She was terrible. She was... I don't think you could get worse, and totally unlikable. And she is. She's a communist. She's left of Bernie. She's rated left of Bernie by everybody. She's a communist. We're going to have a communist, and she's going to be, in my opinion, within a month. Look, I stood next to Joe, and I looked at Joe. Joe's not lasting 2 months as president. Okay, that's my opinion. He's not going to be lasting 2 months. You know, they all like to say, oh, it was so
you think
nice he
she'll
took
be the
his ads
president?
down. He didn't take his ads down. It was all nonsense. He never took his ads down. No, she's a communist. She's not a socialist. She's well beyond a socialist. Take a look at her views. She wants to open up the borders to allow killers and murderers and rapists to pour into our country. We have the tightest borders we've ever had right now. The wall is up to 350 miles long. It'll be finished very soon. It's had a tremendous impact. And frankly, we're working along very well with Mexico. But it's hard to get into our country. And when we do have people in our country that are bad, I throw them out. We're throwing out tens of thousands of people, and they're murderers and they're rapists. She wants to allow everybody to stay in our country. Look at the manifesto. You know, Bernie lies about all this stuff because, you know, Bernie is the guy that's been crazy Bernie. He's the one that's really angry, and so is AOC because, you know, he thought that they had a man in Biden that was going to agree to what they agreed to. And that's no fracking, open borders, you know, sanctuary cities, all of this stuff. He's still probably going to do sanctuary cities because, you know, that for whatever reason.
Well,
but Maria, just to finish, he goes out and he says no fracking for months during the Democrat debates. And then he gets up and he says, no, we're going to frack. Pennsylvania will never go for him because Pennsylvania has 1 million jobs that are fracking. Fracking is energy. That's what they do now, fracking. And you got 1 million jobs that are energy. Their energy costs would triple if they didn't do fracking. The energy costs in our country would quadruple if we didn't frack. So he goes around bragging to the liberal Democrats, to the radical left, there'll be no fracking. Then he gets on the stage in a more normal time with people like that are normal, like us, that have to have fracking for the jobs, for the cost, for the. We're energy independent now because of fracking. He says, oh, yes, I'll frack. Take a look at the pictures. I'm sure you've seen them 100 times. Take a look at him denying there will be no fracking. That's his exact quote. There will be. Yeah, and then, she made it even more emphatic. She laughed about it.
She said it was a fact. That you know, she said that's a fact. She sort of put an exclamation point on it. But this was one of your key themes in terms of turning the economy around. You opened up the spigot on energy along with cutting taxes and cutting regulation.
Energy independent.
But Biden said he's going to reverse your tax cut plan, Mr. President. That means raising taxes on everybody.
Substantially.
Your tax cuts move the needle. What else do you want to do in terms of tax cuts in a second term? Do you want to
We're cutting middle-income taxes.
Go ahead.
We're cutting middle-income taxes substantially. They know that. That's what made this thing successful, between that and the regulation cuts. He's going to put all the regulations back on. It's going to take you 20 years to build a highway. I took highway construction down for 19 years to probably 1 by the time I totally finish it. To get and by the way, if it doesn't work, it's going to get rejected for environmental or safety reasons. But he's going to put them back. It was taking you 20 years to get a road approved. 20 years to get a road. You think of it. You start as a young man. By the time you're a middle-aged man, they haven't approved it. And in many cases, then they reject it. You couldn't get anything approved. You couldn't get plants approved. You couldn't get energy approved. You couldn't get anything. It was so crazy. I showed you that list of things that you had to go through to get a permit in this country for a simple factory. Yes. It was 30 feet high. I've taken it down to a year from it could be 20 years, it could be 15, could be 12. It was massive. And what that would do, it stopped everything. I think that was, frankly, a bigger thing than even the tax cuts. But he wants to end our tax cuts. Two things will happen. We won't have any jobs. All of the companies that are pouring into our country, of which there are many, especially car companies from Japan and Germany and other places, they're going back. They're going to go back. If you do that, they're going to go back because our taxes were so onerous and our regulations were so onerous that even if they wanted to come, I have many car companies coming into this country. You know, when I first started, we hadn't had a car company come in many years. They weren't coming into this country. This country was off bounds. Now they take advantage of it. They'd make their car in Japan, Germany, China, and they'd sell it into our country. We wouldn't charge. We'd have maximum 2% tariff, but we wouldn't even charge them that. And I saved the chicken tax on the truck with South Korea. They were going to wipe out the chicken tax. It's a 25% tax. If it wasn't for me, that tax would be nothing right now. It's the only thing they make money on.
Well,
because they can't compete.
Well, China did not come up very much last night in the debate either, and you have been keeping, the pressure on China to ensure that they change their bad behavior. What is your take on where we are in that in terms of the Chinese Communist Party? They're still stealing intellectual property. Are you expecting to put more tariffs on China in a second term?
The deficit was coming way down with China for the first time in 30 years. Way down with China. I was taking in billions of dollars. I took in $28 billion. I gave the money to the farmers because the farmers were targeted by China as a way to get me to negotiate. I said, no, instead of that, and that's why other presidents, a more normal type president, like a Sleepy Joe type, China ripped them off for years and years. I said to China, listen, you want to play games. So what they do is they say, listen, if you don't give us everything we want, we're not going to buy any corn. And we're not going to buy soybeans, and we're not going to buy beef. And I said, that's okay, don't buy it. I went to the farmers. I said, look, we got to play a game with these people, but I'm going to put tariffs on you. Nobody ever even heard of tariffs. They never even heard of tariffs, nobody. In fact, when I first started doing it, they didn't even know what it meant. I said, I'm going to put tariffs on you to the equivalent that you target. Yeah, to the equivalent that you target our farmers, I'm going to put tariffs on you. We have a lousy phone here.
But, Mr. President, we're just getting this breaking news that the initial jobless claims are out. It was a little higher. It was 840,000 versus an estimate of 820,000. What about the economy, Mr. President? How are you going to get back to the boom times that we were in before COVID arrived? You had an unemployment rate of 3.5%, the lowest that anybody had seen in some portions of the country. Are you going to use the same playbook to get us back? Give us some of the tools you'll use in a second term.
We are. Well, I'm going to use tariffs on China because they want to take them off. We're getting billions of dollars. I was going to tell you that we get $28 billion because our farmers, that's what they got targeted for. I gave all of the money to the farmers, and we had tens of billions left over, which goes into the Treasury. China was getting killed. We were building. Don't forget, you've been a great reporter for a long time. The year 2019, China, if you go back 10 years, 2019, China takes us over as the largest economy on earth. Well, prior to this plague coming in, and still, by the way, but prior to the plague coming in, China was doing lousy compared to us. We were upping them. We were getting bigger and bigger compared to them, and we were doing great. We were way ahead of China. China was never going to catch us if we had a smart guy as president. And the tariffs were pouring in billions of dollars. Then I made the trade deal, and it was a really good deal. They broke it, if you remember. I made a bigger trade deal, and they broke it at the last minute. With 2 days left, they broke the deal. They said, we can't agree to this, the opening up of China and all the things. So I broke off the deal. Then they came back, and I made a partial. There was a good deal for manufacturers, farmers, et cetera. It was more of it was modest, but it was still a massive deal. Not as big as USMCA, by the way, if you can believe that. Mm-hmm. But I made a great deal with China. And our farmers, 2 weeks ago, they made the largest order of corn in history, the largest order of soybeans in history, because they want to keep me happy, because they know that I'm a hair trigger when it comes to them, and I'm sick of them. Everything that we have that COVID, the China virus because of them. You look back at other infections that we've gotten because of them. This isn't the first time. And by the way, the N1, H1N1 that he always calls it N1H1. The swine flu, which is H1N1. We try to tell him every time I have to correct him on that. But that big deal. If you look at that, he did a horrible job of running it. It was a joke. His own person. Ron Klain said he didn't know what he was doing. It was a horror show. He couldn't run it. He didn't. If he ran this, you would have had 2.2 million deaths as opposed to over 200,000. And one is too many because it was China's fault. But if he ran this, you would have had. Remember the original projection, Maria, was 2.2 million people will die if it's not handled properly.
That's right.
Well, we're 200,000 over 200,000.
In America, you have so much that you're dealing with, and now you want to get your next Supreme Court justice confirmed before the election. Do you still feel that you can do that and confirm Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court in the next 25 days?
If we don't, it's the Republicans' fault because there's no reason why not. Look, I'm president, and happened 29 times. She made another mistake last night when she said about Lincoln. She was wrong on that, of course. You know, they say things like we go over it. They say we're not going to do this, and they're going to do it. They just make. I've never seen such liars as this. They're worse than crooked Hillary. She was worse in other ways. She was worse when she deleted 33,000 emails illegally, and she should be indicted for that. If people delete emails in a regular court case, she deleted 33,000 emails, and nothing happens to her. Our justice system, nothing happens to her. With all of the pages of stuff, thousands of pages that we have on them, nothing happens to them. Nothing happens.
Well,
and,
this
you know,
is what
I
I'm
said
saying.
I'm going to not get involved, but
I
I'm going to have to get involved because
John
these people are crooked people.
declassifies all this stuff. It's sitting on his desk, the 1,000 pages sitting on AG Barr's desk. What is he going to do about it?
I don't know why they're not doing it. I don't know. I don't know why. You'll have to call Bill and ask why. You and I had an interview a couple of weeks ago. You and I had an interview a couple of weeks ago for my upcoming book, and I said to you, what was the one thing you learned from your first term? You said there are protected people. There's so much corruption, and there are protected people. Is that who you're referring to? Hillary Clinton is protected. She can delete whatever she wants, and nothing happens. Look what they do. Look what they do to Flynn and so many other people. Look at how they destroy these people. It's 24 years of putting radical liberals in there, and also Bush haters, Trump haters. They put the Bush people in there. Frankly, the Bush people, some of these losers that used to work for Bush, they're worse than the Obama people. So I've got never Trumpers. I've got a combination of never Trumpers, and I've got the Clinton people and the Bush people. It's 24 years of some bad stuff, and we have great people too. I have great people, but we have some bad people, and we have people that somehow Bill has got to move. I don't know what's going on. You got everything. We found him. We caught him. But look at Hillary Clinton. Forget about what was on the emails. Okay, forget about what was on them. She said it was ballet, and it was her teacher's and her daughter's wedding, and it was a lot of nonsense. So she had 33,000 emails. Forget about what was on the emails. It's irrelevant. Although many of them were classified, highly classified, and you go to jail for that. But and they're in the State Department, but Mike Pompeo has been unable to get them out, which is very sad. Actually, I'm not happy about him for that reason. He was unable to get them out. I don't know why. He's running the State Department, you get them out, but they're in the State Department. FBI's been slowly getting stuff out. You're seeing it. Rick Grenell has done a phenomenal job. John Ratcliffe has done a phenomenal job. And, to be honest, Bill Barr is going to go down either as the greatest attorney general in the history of the country, or he's going to go down as a very sad situation. I mean, I'll be honest with you. He's got all the information he needs. They want to get more and more and more. They keep getting more. I say, you don't need any more. You got more stuff than anybody's ever had. Now, with Durham, I don't know what happened to Durham. We're going to find out what happened to Durham. But he's got so much stuff. Look. Mr. Horowitz was appointed by Obama. He wrote approximately 78 pages on Comey that was scathing. And they didn't go after Comey. Yep. And even the New York Times, which is totally biased garbage. It's a terrible newspaper. It's totally a disgusting newspaper. It's the enemy of the people. It writes stories. If I did something so good, they don't even want to talk about peace in the Middle East, no bloodshed. They don't want to talk about anything having to do with fight. These are very dishonest people. But even they wrote a scathing report when Horowitz, Inspector General Horowitz, who I have a lot of respect for. I never met him, but I have a lot of respect for him. Because he was an appointment by Obama, and he came up with a scathing report. Nothing happened with it. I mean, you didn't need anything else beyond that report. That report said he was a liar. He lied to Congress. He lied to everybody. That report was scathing. He did a scathing report in McCabe. McCabe goes out and gets a stupid television show like he's a little angel sitting on CNN, fake news CNN.
And he pulled out of the Senate hearing that he was supposed to do. Mr. President, I know you have to go. Just to recap, you're not going to do the next debate because it's virtual. You're feeling good. I know I want to make sure that the audience understands you're feeling good. Have you been tested recently? Can you tell us anything else about your condition?
I'll be tested very soon, but I'm essentially very clean. They say it's over a period of 6-7 days. And it was an amazing thing happened to me. I just went in and I didn't feel good. And that's okay. I expect it at some point because I'm out there. I've got to be a leader. I can't, Winston Churchill didn't sit in his basement for 6 months. I got a lot of things doing. And again, when I want to say hello to Gold Star families, I'm not going to be in a basement saying, hey, I can't see you as you traveled in from California and all the different places. It's okay. And I figured at some point it's a tiny, I liken it to a tiny little microscopic piece of dust. And it gets into your nose or your mouth or your eye, frankly, or something else, or you touch something. So I understand. And then you get better. But what's happened is the big thing that happened is I call them cures. I don't call them therapeutics. But between Eli Lilly and Regeneron, these are two different companies, you take it. It's an antibody drug. You take it, and it beats the hell out of it. And I'm telling you, I could have walked out there 24 hours after I went in. I didn't even have to go in, frankly. I think it would have gone away by itself. 99.9% below a fairly substantial age has no problem. I mean, they can get it, they can feel a little sick, but they don't die. And the tiny percentage of senior citizens and all. So what I'm going to do is take Regeneron and take the Eli Lilly equivalent. They're a little different. They're, both great, but very similar. I'm going to send them free of charge.
How long will you be taking them?
I've stopped. I don't take them anymore. No, I don't take them anymore.
Okay.
I think I'm taking almost nothing. I think I'm finished with just about everything. I think you go a little bit longer on. They have a steroid. It's not a heavy steroid. They have that go a little bit longer. But I'm almost not taking anything. I feel great. I mean, I'd rather do the interview with you in person rather than a telephone that obviously doesn't work very well.
Well, I'd like to come back to the White House soon to do another interview, Mr. President. I'd love to come back to the White House. I saw it up close and personal. Why is Hillary Clinton being
indicted for terminating 33,000 emails that she got from Congress? Congress made a request to see him. Everybody else I know gets indicted when they don't give that. They don't give. She destroyed 33,000 emails. Forget about the fact that they were classified. Let's go. Maybe Mike Pompeo finally finds them. Okay, but forget about the fact that they were.
Back in the day, Bill Clinton met with then sitting AG Loretta Lynch on a tarmac 3 days before Hillary was to have her interview with the FBI in that non-investigation.
Sure. And they talked about golf, for 45 minutes, and they talked about their grandchildren. Well, that didn't. No, I've been on private planes all my life. I've never seen a plane stop on a tarmac to pick somebody up. It just doesn't happen. You know that better than I do. So let me just tell you, he went there, in my opinion, to talk about extending her for Attorney General or putting her in the Supreme Court if she doesn't do bad things to Hillary. And she did nothing to Hillary. That's what she talked about. And I wouldn't be surprised if you could find those papers. Well, that's what it is, because that's called life. Hillary Clinton, they were after Hillary Clinton after a stroke. This is like before my time. They were after Hillary Clinton on the emails and on many other things. She's crooked. She's crooked as hell. She's a crooked person. And by the way, you talk about a transition of power. She's telling Biden not to do it. But then if I say it, it's like, it's a big story. But Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton gets on a plane on a tarmac, and they talk for 45 minutes about their grandchildren. No, they didn't talk. In my opinion, what they talked about was, we'll extend you an Attorney General, or we're going to give you the next Supreme Court justice case. We're going to give you the seat.
Wow. And then she told Jim Comey to call it a matter.
That's what they do.
She said, call it a matter, not an investigation.
Call it a matter, and, and the same thing with Comey. Look at the way Comey tried to protect her. Now, he got caught because they had a revolution in the FBI, because when he got up and tried to exonerate her, the FBI, which is phenomenal people in the FBI, they had a revolution. You go back to the New York Post and you read what happened years ago. The people working in the FBI had a revolution when he let her go, because instead of just saying, we're letting her go, he read all the charges. And the charges made her guilty as hell. She did this, she did that, we're letting her go. She did this, she did that. There were like 9 or 11 charges that she was all guilty. And then at the end, he said, and therefore we've decided to let her go. They had a revolution with the honest people of the FBI. So then he had to go back and reverse his tracks, and he had to go back and say, well, I'm going to go back and investigate it again. Then he did the investigation, right? But it was getting very close to the election. So he said, well, we won't be able, this will take years to do because they found the pervert's computer. So he said, it'll take years to go through all this stuff. So that was no good because that wouldn't clean her up for the election. Then he miraculously said, oh, we found a computer app that will allow us to go through 8,000 or 78,000. I don't know how she must just sit there and do these things all day long. But 78,000 emails and text messages. We found a new app, and it can do everything in 10 minutes. So it went from years of looking to he can do it in 10 minutes. There's a phony. There's no app that can do that. How can an app tell you? So 3 days later, he came out that she's clean. You know her big mistake? She was so traumatized by the whole thing that she never, ever built it up. It's her fault. I figured she'd have news conferences. You go back and look. She never looked. Comey gave her a pass. Comey gave her a pass, and she never talked about it.
Then they all wiped their phones clean, and the Mueller report, 29 phones wiped clean. But, Mr. President, I want to ask you what you're doing what you want to do for the country in a second term, because you had a really wide tent at your convention. We've spoken with Burgess Owens, Herschel Walker, Candace Owens, all of these people from the black community that have said very supportive things about you. Talk to us about what you want to do in a second term and why you think you are hearing this outreach from the black and minority community.
We have tremendous black community support, men and women, by the way, because I've done more for the black community than any president except Abraham Lincoln, and it's true. What I've done for criminal justice reform, opportunity zones, historically black colleges and universities, nobody's ever done what I've done. Prison reform, nobody's ever done what I've done for the black community other than Abraham Lincoln. I mean, to be honest with you, I say it, and people don't even challenge me on it. And the black community understands that they've been used by the Democrats. They come back 5 months before an election. They come back. They want the vote of the black voter, and they promise all sorts of things. The day after the election, they forget them for another 4 years. It's a disgrace, I'll tell you. But nobody's done what I've done. Look at historically black colleges. Obama wouldn't even fund them. They wouldn't give them any fund. I gave them 10 years' worth of financing at a higher number than they asked for. I said, you're going to need more money than that.
Well, school choice is a major issue this election, Mr. President.
Right.
We've got mothers, women watching who want the opportunity to have a choice when they send their kids to school. I don't understand why your critics are against school choice.
Well, not my critics. It's the Democrats. The Republicans love school choice, and they love charter schools. We have charter schools that are so successful, you wouldn't even believe it, that the same student in a charter school is like a great student. You put them in that public school system that's being destroyed by the unions, just absolutely what's happening there. Biden can't go away from the unions because he's got union support. I think I have a lot of union support. You want to know the truth. And by the way, teachers are teachers. We have to put them in the charter schools, too. You can put them in the charter schools. A teacher is a very valuable, incredible gift to our country. And I love the teachers. I wouldn't be talking to you if it weren't for some very good teachers. And let me just tell you, they want to get rid of school choice. And school choice is the biggest civil rights gift of everything. They want to get rid of it because of the unions. The teachers' union controls Biden. And the radical left controls Biden. Biden won't be president for 2 months, okay? He won't be president for 2 months.
So
if Biden never got in,
you mean he'll have to step down? Are you saying you think he'll have to step down after 2 months?
He's not mentally capable of being president. You know that. Everybody knows that. Everybody that knows him, he can't be president. And this monster that was on stage with Mike Pence, who destroyed her last night, by the way, but this monster, she says, no, there won't be fracking. There won't be this. Everything she said is a lie. In fact, they go back and they agreed to the manifesto. Take a look at the manifesto. They agreed to that with Bernie Sanders and AOC plus 3, I call it, all the killers.
Yes.
They agreed to it. In fact, AOC's having a fit this morning because they disavowed it. They agreed to the manifesto.
Right.
Open borders, crime pouring into our country, They want to have thousands of people that are murderers, rapists, just pour into our country. They could be very sick people. Our borders are sealed right now, except if you come in legally. And it's a great time that I got it done in time. 350 miles already of wall. That's had a huge difference.
You're right. Kamala Harris said she wants to eliminate cash bail for the country. We know what that's done for New York, Mr. President.
It's destroyed. It's one of the many things that's destroyed New York. Yeah, it's destroyed New York. It's what's happened.
Do you think it'll come back?
What's happened in New York is one of the saddest things I've ever seen happen to a city. Now, it's happening in Chicago, too. It's all Democrat-run cities. The only way it's going to come back is you're going to have to find a young version of Rudy Giuliani. Otherwise, it's not. Because they have all these lefties in New York running for office, and they use their criminal system.
Would Don Jr. do it?
They use their...
Would Don Jr. run for mayor in New York? Would Don Jr. do it?
No, I hope not, because he couldn't win as a Republican. Wouldn't have a chance. It's an all-Democrat city. I'm making actually play for the whole state. You know, I did well there, but, you know, in theory. See, the Republicans have a disadvantage. They lose New York, Illinois, and California before it even starts. So, you know, I had to run the table last time. It's not easy. And frankly, winning the Electoral College is tougher, in my opinion, than getting the popular vote, because I don't campaign in New York, Illinois, and California, you know, because they're sort of meant like they're automatic for years. This is for years, no big secret. So you start off with three of the biggest states that you now can't lose almost anything. That was what the miracle was last time. I won Florida. I won North Carolina. I won Pennsylvania. I ran the board. I won South Carolina. I won Georgia. I won Michigan, which hadn't been won in decades and decades. And we should win it again because I brought so much business there, because she's the lockup queen. What she's done to that place is horrible. She's locked it up. She's got people like living in prison. The court just overturned her. They said what you're doing is unconstitutional. What they're doing to Wisconsin is horrible. Look what they're doing to Wisconsin.
Are you giving him? Are you letting him off the hook by not doing a debate because it's virtual?
No, I don't want to do a virtual debate because a virtual debate is a joke. There's no reason. I'm in great shape. I just, you know, I unlike Joe, I don't have the luxury of staying in a basement all day long. I'm running a country. You know, when Winston Churchill was prime minister, he would stand on the top of buildings as Hitler was dropping bombs on London. You know that. You've heard that. And he'd make speeches and put his fist up in the air and say, "How dare you," you know, the mad dog, he called him. And, you know, I can't stay in a basement. I can't stay in a basement. And he can. I mean,
so is that the reason you wanted to make sure people understood you were strong?
When he talks, the way he talks, he can't get sentences out. In fact, if I was criticized for one thing,
so what do you make of these polls then, Mr. President?
I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't believe them. I don't believe the polls because we've never had this much support. They have a boat thing. They have 5,000 boats. They have thousands of trucks all over the country.
I saw one.
Don't believe the polls.
I saw one in my neighborhood.
Maria, I don't believe the polls. And you had the same polls. They were worse the last time. I had one last time. I was 9 down in 9 different states, and I won all of them. I was in 9 states I was down. Big ones. I won every one of them. The polls are rigged just like the reporters are rigged. We have a very dishonest media.
Yeah. Well, the media does not want to focus. The mainstream media has not focused on many of your successes. You mentioned one of them, the Middle East peace program that you are leading. Are we going to see more countries announce that they will normalize relations with Israel?
Yeah, we're going to have more countries come in, and they're all lined up already. It's like I've done it totally different. They put me up for a Nobel Prize, 2 Nobel Prizes, that in Kosovo, Serbia.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
I know, but the press doesn't even write about it. Not that I did that, but the press doesn't think of it. You get nominated for a Nobel Prize, you don't even get a story. They don't even write about it. They don't even talk about it. It's disgusting, frankly. Obama got one. Nobody even, like his first couple of weeks in office, nobody even knew what he did. And he didn't know what he did. When they asked him, why are you getting it, he had no clue. But he got it because he's a liberal Democrat, and life is a lot easier. Tell you, life is a lot easier on the other side, but this is the side that works. This is the side that's going to keep our cities straight and clean and safe and law and order. Because you take a look at what's happening in Portland and Chicago and New York, and every one of them is radical left Democrats, and they're destroying those cities. And if I'm the only thing standing in the way, because this country will go to hell. Your taxes will double and triple and quadruple. Your stock markets will crash. We'll have a depression, the likes of which we've never seen before.
Mr. President, I so appreciate your time this morning. We hit on a lot of important issues for the American people, and we thank you so much, Mr. President.
Okay.
I'm glad you're feeling strong. You sound terrific.
I feel great. Thanks a lot, Maria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.